Today's meeting of the Environmental Advisory Board is called to order on October 23rd. Welcome, everyone. The members of the Environmental Advisory Board were appointed by the City Council. We serve voluntarily. The board's objective is to provide citizen insight into the City Council and staff on environmental activities within and affecting the City of Clearwater. Agendas of today's meeting are on a table near the door to the entrance to our chambers today. Please remember to turn off your cell phones and electronic devices. To ensure a complete record of the board's actions, we ask that each individual wishing to speak clearly state their name and spell it for the clerk. Will the members of the board please introduce themselves?
Hello, my name is Kelly Dobbin.
I'm Jared Leone.
I'm Glenna Wentworth.
John Thomas.
Our liaison.
Micah Maxwell.
And
Cassie Cordova.
all right. Thank you very much. Our first order of business is our minutes from July 19th. However, we do not have those this time, so we will have a double duty of minutes in January. So we'll move on to our next item. Citizens to be heard, items that aren't on the agenda. If there's anyone wishing to speak about something that's not on the agenda, please come forward and state your name. All right. We'll move on to the next item then. New business, discussion of a city fee-based program, item 4.1.
Working there, but it doesn't seem to want to go. Thank you, sir. So we talked at the last meeting, and actually remember that brought it up. This is actually no longer with us here, but still wanted to bring up the concept of the fee-based program. It is a part of Greenprint. Let me cut back up here and close my items here. But it is a part of Greenprint in the energy and building section. And the way that Greenprint speaks about it, it is a system that really rewards developers that are using environmentally friendly development processes, and then those that do not basically would be paying a little extra and in essence funding the savings for the other individuals that are taking part in the program. So just wanted to start the conversation on it. More than anything else, we don't have anything formal yet, but with the comp plan ending, the changes to the comp plan ending, this is the time where we're going to be making changes to the land development code. So it's certainly the time to make some adjustments or ask for planning to look at some adjustments if that's something that the board is interested in us looking at.
Yeah, I guess we'll open this up for discussion with the board. John?
What are the criteria that are going to be used to evaluate whether a developer, should be awarded a rebate or a fee paid, whatever the term is? Would it be going through the LEED, leadership in energy environmental design criteria? As an example, if they're going to silver, gold, platinum, or different levels that they would be rewarded or it's going to be tough to establish some criteria. Right? Yes, we set some real benchmarks of things that we're looking at that are important to the city of Clearwater, whether it's stormwater related, energy related. There's more than just those building criteria. There's a lot that could be landscape related, or green space on the project, etc. Other incentives. So I'm not sure.
Yeah, we don't have anything specific yet. It could be one of those. The National Green Building Standards also, I think, have the ability to use those in some way. Planning is something that we want to look deeper at. We want to have them look a little closer at some of the different options, the best practices for rebates. We can do that. We can circle back to the next meeting. Plenty of time to do whatever the code changes are. We have looked at, I believe, in the downtown plan. The most recent update to that plan included some, not the penalty part of it, but some bonuses that were related to electric car chargers being placed in facilities, and I believe it was a multifamily facility. So that was added into the land development, or not land development code, the downtown plan, the last iteration of that. I believe it was earlier this year, but we don't necessarily have anything else that speaks real specifically to that. Now, there are some other cities that we've seen, they have some different items where they're a lot more specific. I think Dunedin has some more specific ones, not necessarily a LEED or a National Green Building standards, but they have some other items that we refer back to their plan. Whose name escapes me at the moment, but so we've got a lot of different options. What's that?
It's the green plan.
Green. Okay, yeah. But yeah, so I don't have anything real specific yet, but we can certainly kind of, some of y'all want to look at, we'll work with planning to bring something.
Are there any examples of other cities that have such a program for a period of time? So there's a track record?
Yeah, there's a
response. Does it work? Is it worth the investment of time to proceed?
Yeah, we'll get a little deeper into some of the length of time things. There are a number of them in the city, in the state that do have them, so it's possible to have different versions of them. My expectation is that the pushback will probably come at the penalty side of it rather than the incentive side, right? That's
Well,
usually
there's a cost to some of those standards.
Yeah, and at least the way it's written in green print, you would probably have to pre-fund it no matter what, because you're not going to have necessarily the penalties prior to the. You might have the penalties prior to the incentives, but we don't know that that'll happen. So we would probably identify some dollars either way, but for sure, that's a big part of the conversation.
So would this be for all new development?
Could be.
All new development.
Yeah.
And what we're talking about is including it in the comprehensive plan?
Well, not necessarily in the comprehensive plan, but in the land development code. So it would need to be part of that process if we were going to have it effective.
Yeah, I like the idea, like John mentioned, as far as a major is to look at the different aspects of the development, not just the building itself, but the stormwater aspect, the energy, the use of that, just a number of different aspects that maybe a developer isn't able to meet certain criteria, but they're able to do other ones, and that can kind of offset, again, depending on what is put together.
Yeah, I like that. And I like the idea of rewarding what we want to see rather than penalizing so much, right? And I'm sure there's other cities who have really good examples that we could model after.
Rewards don't necessarily have to be financial. It can be increased density, which is.
Yep, and that's what the car charging vendor was. It really related to flexibility.
Great.
Orlando is an all gold lead city, and I'm not sure what all that means, but if that's just the municipality, municipal buildings, or if it's for community-wide, or whatever, in terms of their ordinances, they might be good to check out.
We actually have their city attorney now, so I'm sure he worked on that, but our city attorney, David Barros, he worked at Orlando, so I'm not sure if it was during this period.
Yeah.
Are there any other comments from the board? Are there any comments from the audience? Please step forward and state your name for the clerk. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Brian Becker, resident of Clearwater. So a couple of thoughts. One is you point to examples, which is great for other cities. I think an example that intersects with this is Dunedin has an incentive for solar on homes. I think they just had it starting, they've had it for several years. They just started it back up for the new fiscal year. It's October 1st. And I think they have a total of 50 homes that they can have each fiscal year. And it's either $2,000 or $2,500 that a homeowner can apply for a rebate. So they have to have it installed first. So that's an example. It could be new construction, it could be existing homes. So they're a great example in the county that way. Clearwater might want to think about a pilot for that. 50 is some magical number. It's a number that worked for them. And then I'd say overall, when I go and knock on a lot of doors, talking to residents, energy bills are one of the number one issues that people are having. I remember knocking on someone's door, probably had about a 700 square foot quadplex that they were in, and they said, the first words out of your mouth should be, how are you going to lower my $500 energy bill that I just got last month? And so it makes me think of, from a landlord standpoint, about what kind of incentives could be given to help weatherize homes, do things from an air conditioning standpoint, other things that may not be solar related, but could be drastically reduced bills. It's very difficult to understand how someone has a $500 utility bill in such a small home. So it's got to be lack of insulation, bad air conditioning, and things like that. So those are a couple of ideas that I thought I would mention. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Yeah, I think that Brian brings up a good point that the program should include the opportunity for homeowners to improve their home and energy efficiency or other means. Maybe, if they have a rebate for it. I think the city's done that in the past.
And we can certainly, let me see if Sanderson from Economic Development will be able to attend at the next meeting as well. They have a number of programs for certain areas of the city that will allow for some renovations to homes, some upgrades to electrical, energy efficient, or just just upgrades to the houses, but with a focus on energy efficiency. I think that would make sense.
Yeah, I think in the past some of those have been a lower 0% loan, but I think what we're talking about is more of a rebate like that.
Well, they do have the ability to have a grant program or a lot of different options here.
Okay. But yeah, I think that's something that the city's already doing, maybe explore more of.
The new program has been in existence, I think, since 2018, and it's a solar rebate grant program and I don't know how much they put into that. It's a first come, first served. It's not based on economic need, and it's retroactive. So you can apply again and again. If you put your solar, on your rooftop solar on like 2019 or something like that, but you didn't make it into the rebate program. So there's a certain amount that's just in there. And also every year there's a certain amount that they just budget for this rebate program. I don't read print has a goal of 1,000 homes. This is on low income housing solar, right? 1,000 homes. I don't know what, this would not exactly address that because it must be made based on economic need. I think that maybe entail a lot more screening sorry.
And economic development has, has been looking at that program as well, the low income solar program. It's in Green Grant, so they're working on some. I believe they allocated some funding for it. We haven't got the sweet spot on how to implement it yet, but there's always little challenges here and there, but we're working through them.
All right. Any other comments from the audience? All right, we'll move on to our next item, 4.2, the discussion about the use of pesticides at city facilities.
And I think that actually the one item that was extra on that was actually supposed to be for the next item. I didn't realize that at first. But, so what this was actually supposed to be speaking to not only basically the pest and vegetation. It says pest only, but it was intended to be
herbicides as well.
Yeah. So we wanted and provided a document that the city utilizes, and it's actually a county document. We wanted to give it to y'all really just to start the conversation again. Obviously it's a long document and it's got, a lot of information in it. We can have some conversation if you'd like, or we can, we can have some additional conversation next month. But we've also included the memo from Parks and Rec that talks about that they're using the system itself.
All right, was Matt going to present it all?
Nothing
Okay.
in particular, no.
All right.
Just wanted to see if y'all had any questions or what direction y'all wanted to go.
Sure,
and
sure.
try to set something up for.
Yeah, a little bit of John.
I looked at the county report there, and that was from 2020. And I think there's some more research and data on the science side with some of the herbicides that are commonly used by the county that are kind of listed in that report. Things like equity, things that glyphosate, commonly Roundup type of herbicide, that there's public health concerns coming out with some of the more recent studies and not recognized as yet, I guess, by EPA or some of the regulatory agencies. But I think it might be prudent to be a little bit more judicious with those applications, those materials, on what I would consider more sensitive sites. Children's playgrounds, for example, or some of the sports facilities where kids are in contact with the ground on a frequent basis.
Those
Just
dogs
some-
walk. If they're dog walkers, express concerns about herbicide,
Matt wanted to make a comment.
I think to that, too, there's also the concern about close to waterways where it has the runoff into the water as well.
Yeah, I can give you, Matthew Anderson, Assistant Director of Parks and Recreation. I can give you a brief overview sort of what we do and what that memo entails to give you a little better idea, a little bit of clarification, particularly with regards to waterways, dog parks, all those kind of items. Excuse me. So what we do is we use that integrated vegetation management program. We actually sat with the county and many other municipal governments to help develop it. Glyphosate is one of the most researched chemicals that are in the herbicide market, really. I mean, there's a lot of chemicals that don't have anywhere near the research that was put into glyphosate. I can't obviously comment, I'm not a scientist, but I can look at the different links that you'll see in integrated vegetation management and make decisions based off that, as educatedly as I can. But we follow that manual. We also, anyone that sprays anything, even if it's including putting out ant-bait at a park, we require them to have a limited non-ornamental certification. That requires a full day of class, an additional half a day of class, and then a test. And it does not have an extremely high passing rate. You have to be able to do math. You have to really work through the use of herbicides and applying them appropriately, along with utilizing the label, because the label is the law. You'll see that when you look at our memo. If you're not following the label, you're violating your license and you're violating the EPA rules, because that label explains to you everything that's needed to apply it safely for not only the applicator but the end users of that area. So one of the things that we're looking to do is to compile all the labels of everything we use. It's sort of an ongoing process we've been working through. We have chemical reports, so when we have to apply herbicide, ant-bait, whatever the case might be, the applicator has to document how much they use, where they use it, and all those types of things. So we're working on compiling all that data, potentially to have the ability to share it with people to make sure that concerns can be met. Or just something, like I said, we're working on internally. Same with the label process, so where you can say, hey, what are you spraying? We can actually provide you with the label, whether we email it to you or print it and hand it to you. So the labels are pretty lengthy, but they explain, like I said, everything for the applicator safety, the environment safety, and also the end user of the parks or green spaces. One thing to address with aquatic that was brought up, we don't have anyone in the city that is an aquatic applicator, and we do not spray within the confines of needing an aquatic license, that's one thing we don't want to do. Our environmental department actually hires a contractor, and that's what they specialize in. So they do all that, all the reporting and all that stuff is done. But with regards to parks and rec, because we do apply herbicide as needed. We use it on a case by case. We don't rock it and spread it, but there are certain maintenance requirements that require us to spray, particularly ball field situations. Keeping our ball fields as green, lush, and playable as they are, it requires chemicals, and we try to use as few as we have to, but there is a necessary need for chemicals in a lot of those applications. Like you said, with regards to playgrounds, we don't spray inside playgrounds. There's limited use occasionally in a dog park, but it's very situational, particularly with ant bait, because we don't want the dogs to end up in a pile of ants either, because that's not beneficial to the pet or to the owner. So I can answer any questions that I have the answer to. I may not be able to answer everything, but if there's anything I can answer to today to clarify anything, I'd be glad to do that at this point.
Are there, Parks and Rec, there's like 110 parks, different classifications, recreational, some are not pretty wild. I mean, there could be,
Absolutely.
Do you utilize land management techniques that allow for not using herbicides on those, not the non-ballpark and,
You mean like a Chautauqua or Moccasin Lake or something like that, like more of a nature park? We use as little herbicide as possible. Unfortunately, with natural areas, you get invasive species, and mechanical removal is not always the best process for invasive species. Sometimes it's almost worse when you cut them, because now instead of one trunk on Brazilian pepper, you've got tons. And we try to mechanically remove the entire plant if possible. But when we do have to remove and mitigate invasive species, there is herbicide used at times, but it's very little, as little as we have to. But like a Lake Chautauqua, I honestly can't remember the last time that anybody went in there to spray anything. It's kept natural. Obviously, the trails are maintained, the parking lots are maintained, and everything else is allowed to be as natural as possible. And we do have 110 parks, but that could be as simple as a small pocket park, essentially, like a small lot, or even we've got a roundabout that's considered a park. It's got a bench in it.
so it's a little square?
It's a little square, yeah. So 110 would be, that's a lot, but we do have some.
They vary in size.
Absolutely, they really do. So.
Thanks.
Yeah, I was going to ask, I noticed in the county, the IVM, it noted that there was about 70 gallons total that was used. I guess that was throughout county parks and facilities. Do we know what the number is that the city uses?
I don't have that at that time, and it varies depending on time of year, particularly like upcoming here in the wintertime when things aren't really going that much, or Florida. We don't require to use as much. That's something I can get back with you on.
I was curious. That didn't sound like a lot when I was looking at other communities, like in Miami, where they banned the use. They said they use like almost 5,000 gallons a year. So I thought that was a sizable difference in terms of use by the different communities. But I was kind of curious also, and Glenn kind of brought it too, alternative methods of pesticide and pest and herbicide that you guys use. Can you speak to any of those outside of, like you said, mechanical use? Are there volunteers who go out and pull things as well?
Yeah, I can. We actually looked into there's some acetic acid bases, which is essentially vinegar. They have some very strong mixes that you can use. One of the issues with that is you potentially could blind the applicator or participant in the park because there's a high level of acetic acid. Now, it does kill the plant, but it's got a danger label, whereas, I believe Roundup has a warning label versus a danger. There's different levels on the labels, but potential permanent blindness is one of the issues with that acetic acid. So we have tried it. It works long term. It doesn't really kill the plant, and it puts our applicators at risk. So it's really not something that we carried on very long. But it was something we looked at during the process of that IVM manual being compiled. We also went, Pinellas County had an IVM workshop where they brought basically all the cities together, brought various types of equipment. We looked at some of the hot foam applications and some of the non-chemical methods aside from mechanical. And they're definitely things that we're looking into. But no matter what path we go on, to some extent, we're always going to have chemicals in our maintenance division. Just the sheer what we do with keeping 100 acres of Bermuda grass, playable and those types of things. We certainly do everything we can to limit it.
Yeah, and I think something else you mentioned, if there is a possibility of that coming to fruition and making that public, that information, so it could be put on, like you said, like on the Parks and Rec website or on the homepage or something like that, and it just says, hey, look, this park was sprayed today with these chemicals, or none of our playground facility, any facility ever has this stuff sprayed. Just so I think there's a lot of misconception in the public.
And there is, and that's one of the things that we're working on, is try to be as transparent as we can. And it's going to take time because we don't have a ton of staff in that group anyways, but it's one of those things we want them to work on that along with their duties, but it is a goal of ours. Hopefully by the end of the year to have the ability to do that. So
That's great.
We had, it was about a year ago, some of our residents came forward with a request for us to look at a pilot program using, I can't remember, what's the word? Escape? I can't say the word. Using a land management technique that would reduce the need for herbicides and pesticides.
okay.
We, the EAB, we liked the idea, we wanted to bring it forward, but we never really, I can't remember where that went. But if we could reproduce that, could we bring that to you? And just
If you can get it to Micah, he knows how to get it to me, and we can certainly look at it at an internal level and see what.
There's a non-for-profit that would train staff to do this. This land management technique. And at the moment, at the time, they were doing this for free.
Okay.
Whether they're doing that now, it's probably a year or more later.
Right.
Yeah, but we'll bring that to Micah and see if maybe we can sit down and meet sometime.
Sure.
Quick meeting.
I'd be glad to do that. I'm over maintenance groups. I'm not over the ball fields maintenance, but all the parks and open space recreation, all that maintenance, I'm over that. So I'll be glad to sit down and look at it. I can always bring somebody from the ball field section as well to take a look at it.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
yeah, absolutely. We'll look at any option to limit our chemical use. So,
I just want to say one thing.
this way.
Let's also try and look at the opportunity to publish the good things you are doing, right? So like you said, on playgrounds, you're not spraying. Like, that would be really great for residents to know, right? Even if we got it on the website, or even if there was a sign at the park or something like, this is a pesticide-free zone or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, let's not miss out on a good PR opportunity to publish the good works you are doing.
Okay. Yeah, I will definitely work with Allie, who's our public communications representative, on putting out the things that we do that are positive. And one of the biggest things with us is helping manage expectations, because with the resources we have, when we remove chemicals from some spaces, it does not look as nice as it did before. But that's one of those things I think with messaging that we can certainly work on. So.
Right, it's a trade-off, right?
Absolutely.
Everything's a trade-off.
No, that's for sure. Anything else I can
Any comments from the audience? All right, thank you very much, Matt.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to our next item then, 4.3, the rainy season fertilizer ban update. And this is a presentation from Ms. here. Brian?
Thank you. You just wheel this thing over and y'all can at least have
Okay.
a version of it,
I would do it that way, okay. Oh, wait, you're good.
Press the button, yeah.
Okay,
I reviewed it on.
I appreciate that.
Okay.
Okay, so Brian Beckman again. So I'm certainly not going to claim that I'm an expert here when it comes to water, our waterways, and all the contributors to things that have a bad impact on our waterways. But we do have experts within our Sierra Club statewide that have provided a lot of information to myself and others. And we have a campaign that we started a couple of months ago. We started first engaging the county, asking for support to show strong support for the fertilizer bans that are in existence today. And this stems from recent law that was just enacted, July 1st, I think it was, to preempt any further fertilizer bans, restrictions for the next year. And so this is in large part a response to that. And the essence of it is to ask for our county and municipalities in the county, and really throughout the entire state, to show strong support for the fertilizer bans that we have in place today, and that have been in existence for over a decade or so. And there's great reasons why they were put in place to begin with. They've shown great results. And so I would summarize here before going into any information on the slides, is that this is basically common sense, as well as really backed up by the science. Tampa Bay Estuary Program, what I believe is coming presented here to the EAB at different times, talking about seagrass and things like that. Gather a bunch of data there that helps substantiate, demonstrating the need for these types of fertilizer ordinances. And so, again, science and common sense on being able to keep those. I'll also make one more remark. So the county, inside the county of Pinellas here, is the first one that has taken a step on this. So we've engaged them. The step that they've taken is they've made it a legislative priority. One of, I think it was like 4 or 5, in one of the recent commission meetings that the commission approved for the upcoming legislative session, to take this position forward, that to show strong support for the fertilizer bans we have in place. So with that, that's kind of the setup that I would give you. And then the slides that person on our Florida team put together, there's a slide there, so I'm not able to see what you have there, that has the pie chart on it.
Yeah.
This one.
Yep. So I'm not going to go through the details of that, but that's a 2010s picture of what are the main contributors to the nitrogen load here in Tampa Bay. Of course, Tampa Bay is broken up into a lot of different regions, Old Tampa Bay versus other parts of it. So it is monitored to those different sections, let's say. But nitrogen and runoff is still a big contributor, but it would be much larger if we didn't have the ordinances that are in place. So if you could go to the next slide. And so this slide just basically gives you a quick summary of what are those things that are considered to be non-point, basically stormwater runoff, and all the things that get into our stormwater. Here, obviously the topic of the main target of trying to restrict that nitrogen runoff is related to fertilizer. And with that, I'm going to go to the next slide. And so this touches on the strong fertilizer bans that are in place in the region, essentially, that surround the Tampa Bay. So you've got Sarasota County, Pinellas, City of Tampa, et cetera, that have enacted those bans since 2007. There's another one, it's not ours, but the most recent one, Hernando County just enacted one right before the July 1st date came into being. They saw it as obviously extremely important to put that in place. So a long history here in the region for those fertilizer bans being in place. So if you can go to the next slide. And what makes up strong fertilizer ordinances? These are some of the highlights. Again, this is not just a Pinellas County priority. 18 counties across the state, over 100 municipalities have adopted similar fertilizer ordinances. Pinellas has one of the stronger ones because it also includes a sales ban during that period of time of rainy season. I'm not going to go through all the details that are in there, but one of the other things that was interesting to me as I dug into this more was the fertilizer-free zones near the waterways. You know, whether it's X number of feet versus a wider strip, let's say, if you can picture that along the waterway. And so ours is apparently 10 feet, which seems pretty important to try to reduce the runoff into our waterways. If you can go to the next slide. And so for the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, it's really a pretty low bar that has been set for statewide protections. It was interesting as I read this here. It actually, I guess, says that, hey, don't apply fertilizer when you expect it to rain, which seems to be pretty credulous to think that you can predict that and you're going to be able to have staff or maintenance crews, et cetera, that apply fertilizer to adhere to that. So that's one that I found very interesting. A much narrower zone there of fertilizer-free zone that you see on that example as well. If you can go to the next slide. That preemption slide just highlights what I mentioned earlier about that it went into effect on July 1st of this year. And the other piece of that is to have University of Florida Institute of Food and Agriculture Sciences to basically look at the effectiveness. And like I said here in the introduction, this is well established from a science standpoint and also very common sense. So there's concerns there about the way that that organization has, if you go to the next slide, has ties with the fertilizer industry. So there's concerns about that, about how they're going to look at and interpret things and come back with recommendations. Hence why we're here today. But it's also a defending home rule, giving municipalities the ability to define ordinances and not be restricted by the state. So very important from that perspective. And there's many defenders of home rule across our region. Many of our legislators as well. So very important from that perspective. And then if you go to the last slide, thank you. So this just re-summarizes our goals, is that we ask that our municipalities, our county, make it a legislative priority. Again, from a county perspective, they have done that. And then adopt a resolution that, there's many whereases. I think an example has been presented here to Clearwater. But the resolution itself basically states to reaffirm the strong support that Clearwater would have for continuing with a fertilizer ban. So that's my quick rendition of the topic. Questions? Yes.
Have there been any questions put forth to like Home Depot or Lowe's or a lot of the big stores that sell the products, getting their cooperation in, getting different products or better products, or, you know what I mean? I'm a huge fan of education and getting people to buy in and talking about, I would think that the Department of Environmental Protection could do a whole PSA on this, right? Even if they just let consumers know, don't fertilize before, Channel 9 tells you it's going to rain. They could do a whole PSA on that, right? To educate the public to get more buy-in. But I was just wondering if you had gotten like any kind of dialogue or conversation with, organizations who could greatly impact the outcome.
Well, it's a great question. I have not, and I'm not aware what conversations proactively or constructively. I know anecdotally that sometimes you hear about conversations that are being had in the store at a point of sale, and I think some education there at a retailer level, at a store level, would be beneficial to salespeople. Frankly, to hopefully not encourage them to go across someplace else to go and buy that so they can apply it in their yard. That's some of the things that we hear anecdotally, but I haven't seen that personally either. But education would be, an example there to apply there. Yeah. Other questions? Any other questions?
Well, at present, we have a strong fertilizer ban that during the rainy season, you cannot sell fertilizers that have not had phosphorus. We've had that for over a decade. So, it seems like this resolution, what the resolution is basically saying, and a request to make this a legislative priority for the 2024 election or legislative season, is to say basically we like our rainy season fertilizer ban and we don't want to lose it.
That's the essence of what the resolution
The
says.
essence of it is to, and did you say the county board of commissioners has done that very thing? I mean,
They've included it under legislative priorities. So a couple of sessions ago, they included that in their short list of like 4 or 5 that they put in front of the commission, staff put in front of the commission. They actually, when we met with a commissioner, acted on it pretty quickly to get it in front of the group of commissions across the state to, I think, also have them included in their legislative priorities as well. Hopefully we can have the League of Cities do something similar because they go in interface with state legislature as well. So hopefully it can be across many fronts. We as Sierra Club are having these conversations with cities that we interact with quite routinely on environmental topics, and hoping that they can, in where we have environmental advisory boards that are usually interested in these kind of topics.
would it be best to start this out with a motion and then a discussion,
We have to have a discussion first.
Okay.
We have to open it up for anyone in the audience to speak as well.
Okay.
So, first, does the board have any other comments? Yes. I noticed that it mentions Anclote River, Coastal, Pinellas, Old Tampa Bay, St. Joseph Sound. Now this includes like the Stevenson Creek and other water bodies within Clearwater?
Yeah, I think so that's in some of the whereases that you're...
Yeah, I didn't specifically
Yep.
see the
Yep.
Stevenson Creek, so I didn't know if that fell under some of those other
I think that's just
watershed.
trying to lay out a bigger picture of these the fertilizer bans, especially when we look at it countywide. They affect our waterways in a broad way. So.
all right. I didn't. Yeah, I think it's pretty clear it's something that the city's been supportive in the past. Do we have any other comments from the audience about this? Please come forward and state your name, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak.
Doug Hickman, and I live on Florida. I actually taught when this passed on the county level. And the reason it means something to me is my father got malaria during World War II and was shipped here for recovery. And he was amazed. You could take a rowboat out and look down and see the crabs crawling on the bottom. I've only seen that about 3 times in my 40-some years, okay? When we would have a rain, and like I said, I live on the water, and it hadn't rained in like 2 weeks, which we don't have that everyday thing that we used to have. The water would turn electric green. I mean, like the next day, boom, just like that. a good workout. It was unbelievable, the water clarity. And since this happened, since we got the ban, I've never seen that happen after 1 year. I saw it twice in the first year, and then after that, it's never happened again. It's a good rule. It helps everybody, you know, and all this does is exacerbate things like red tide and the phosphate mines dumping billions of gallons of garbage into the bay. Keep it. Fight for it. It works. And by the way, when I said something about Clearwater, Commissioner Steele said, I too remember when Clearwater was clear water.
Thank you. I think Doug made some good points. I think this is a really good idea. And I think, do we need to just pass a motion to support the resolution, or do we need a letter to send to the council with the resolution? What's our action?
I think, you know, at the last meeting, we approved the legislative priorities. We can simply add those to the legislative priorities of the board. If you'd like a motion to add them, would probably work just fine. And then we'll forward them to the clerk's office and make sure they're on the list, and then the council will consider those as they make their decisions on what to have.
And that's how the resolution would get in front of the city council then?
Right.
Okay.
Can you support us putting it in our final report
You certainly can, yeah. Yep.
to bring their attention?
Yeah, I don't remember off the top of my head, and Nicole may or may not remember when the legislative priorities are going to council. Pretty soon. I just don't know if it'll be, if it's in the next 2 meetings, you may not make it. It may, I just want to make sure I tell them about it first.
Isn't it November?
Yeah, I think it's the second meeting in November that you're planning on doing it, but if it's at the next meeting, and I'm not sure if it is, for the city council's legislative priorities, I just want to make sure we don't miss it.
Yeah, well, I think about doing.
Yeah, do both, yeah, no, for sure, yeah, we can for sure do both, yep.
Okay, then I'm looking for a motion to add the resolution in support of the Clearwater strict rating season ban urban fertilizer ordinance to the list of legislative priorities.
I will make that motion. And the Environmental Advisory Board support the resolution regarding the strict rain season ban on urban fertilizer and the ordinance that we have in place, and support the home rule aspects of this with the state legislature.
All right, we need a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None? Hearing none? It passes. All right, then thanks, Micah. We'll move this to, and then I guess you'll let us know what the time frame is with the city council.
Yeah, as soon as we hear that, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, excellent, great. Thank you very much, Brian, for the presentation. We'll move on to our next item. It's 4.4, review near-term items with the Environmental Advisory Board.
If possible, could we move that one to the back end? It's supposed to be at the back normally,
Yeah,
just so we can kind of.
Sure. So then we go to our old business, 5.1, update on Cooper's Bayou.
Sarah is here, Sarah Kessler is here to talk a little bit about where we are in the process for Cooper's.
Come on down.
Hello,
Thanks for joining
nice to
us.
see all of you again. So last Monday, we,
Can you please?
Sarah Kessler, Environmental Specialist in the Environmental Division of Public Works. The Cooper's Point water quality improvement and water quality and habitat improvement project was out for an RFQ. We currently have, I think you guys know most of you know most of this part, is we have about 30% plans, and we have a permit from SwiftMud right now. So the RFQ was out on the street for 30 days, and that is to add all the remaining parts of the project. So it will be the final design of it, It will be the additional permitting with the Corps of Engineers. And then it'll also add a few other things that we realized we needed. There's some stormwater things along Bay Shore that we're going to add to it. We already have the baffle boxes along Bay Shore and all the outfalls on Bay Shore. And so this will just provide a little channel, a little maintenance channel to make it easier for our maintenance people to go in. So we have a few of those update things. So we'll need to reopen the Swift Mud permit and add those to the permit, and so it'll include permitting too. And then also include all the recreation elements. So it will improve we'll have plans to improve the boat launch at Cooper's Bayou Park. It will have a few fishing platforms. Perhaps we can look at the budget, see how things work out. An observation platform, and then all the hiking trails and kayak trails there. Just as a reminder of what the project, of what like the big stuff of the project is. It is dredging Cooper's Bayou, because right now at low tide you can pretty much walk across it. It's kind of gross. Well, you can't really. You can like drag your feet through the muck across it. It's pretty gross. And then it is dredging some of the mosquito ditches that are in Cooper's Point area. So that it's not doing all of them, it's doing them selectively to enhance the flushing. So it's looking at what mosquito ditches are there to enhance the flushing. So a few years ago, we installed I call it the culvert to nowhere. It's a bridge that goes to Nova Southeastern University, so it is a navigable bridge. You can paddle under it, except we haven't improved the ditch that goes under it. So it's like you have this great paddling bridge, but nowhere to actually go underneath it. So we'll be able to open that channel up so you can go from Cooper's Bayou Park through that bridge out to Old Tampa Bay. And then it also is creating a cut in Cooper's Bayou, Cooper's Point, farther up, kind of the narrowest point. So it'll allow for additional circulation. And then the big ticket item, but the one that's going to get us really huge water quality improvement through flushing, is going to be an actual cut in the causeway. So it'll be close to 400 feet. So it's 400 feet, it's about 100 feet longer than the cut they did on the east side of the causeway. So the one that DOT already did on that side, we're going to do it on our side. And so it's going to be west of the little bridge. You know, you go over that little bridge as you go across. It's going to be west of that. So it's not very far away from Cooper's Point and stuff, but that's so all of that needs to be designed and permitted. Construction inspection is also part of this contract. So we reviewed the proposals. We had 2 of them. We selected an engineer to help us with the process. It is the engineer who has been working on the design up to this point, so it should be a super easy transition. And then right now I am negotiating with them, and we're working on a scope of work. And then hopefully in a month-ish time, when we get all that figured out, we'll go to council and hopefully they will approve this. And so we can continue moving forward. So I'll come back to you when we start to get moving on things, so we can get some input on some of the like recreation elements and things like that. As far as the water quality elements, those are pretty much set in stone. Like, it's really based on the modeling, what gives us the biggest bang for the buck. And so if we put a cut in the causeway that was, 1,000 feet, like, that would obviously be better, but it's also going to cost us a lot more. And so with those water quality elements, that stuff's set in stone. But the recreation elements and some of that stuff, we still can have discussion and get input and things like that from. So excited about it moving forward, and my legacy project, hopefully, I only have 14 more years at the city, so let's get this done. Oh, the other thing that's part of this contract is grant funding. And so the people that I've worked with at this consultant, they are very familiar with a lot of grants. There's a NOAA grant out right now that offers a lot of money. And that's the thing is, you know, a lot of people are like, oh yeah, we could give you $1 million. And it's like, thank you, but this project is gonna be, you know, $70, $80 million project. So it's like, thanks for the $1 million, but I need a lot more. And so right now, NOAA does have substantial funds that I'm hoping we can tap into their money and get some of that. So, yeah, absolutely.
And so right now, we do not have any, we show some funding, I think it's like 30 million roughly, as grant funding in the budget. We don't have any city dollars allocated to the project yet. That's what we're gonna need to start trying to figure it out as we move forward.
Yeah, we have design funding, like we have the design stuff, we don't have any construction. So we have it on the CIP of, we're gonna be doing this in the out years, but we just need the money for it, so, yeah.
The causeway cutout, was that gonna be funded by FDOT?
So we have not negotiated with FDOT about that right now. So they actually did a lot of the 30% design. So they've already contributed $750,000 to this project, like getting it this far and some of the studies and the models that they've done for this project, because they know they need some mangrove credits. And so some of the improvements that we're making out there, they're going to use those credits. And so they've already kind of figured out what they need and what they want. So most likely they will not, they will be a partner in this, but they're not going to be paying for it.
And with the stormwater and water quality improvements, is Swift Mud a partner in the project too?
We're hoping they'll get on board. So SwiftMud has a lot of money right now for water production and that sort of thing. And so they're giving a lot of money to public utility stuff. This project doesn't fit into their boxes very well. And so everybody says, oh, it's a great project, but I don't know where it fits in. And so that's kind of a problem we run up against with SwiftMud. But we got a great team, and they're going to find us money, and so this project will be built.
Yeah, no, it sounds like with kayak, possible kayak trails, things like that, there could be a lot of opportunities for funding.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know like all the grant stuff that is in Parks and Rec, but so many like access to water grants are available, and so I think a lot of the recreation elements could probably be covered. To have fishing platforms available to people, we don't have a lot of open access like that, and so that'll be, I think that those could probably be covered in grants and things like that.
And you said boat launch, stuff like things like that.
Yep,
There's not a
kayak
lot
launch,
of access on the east side of this.
Yeah, so when we upgrade the launch at Cooper's Bayou Park, we are not turning it into like a boat launch. Like it is not a motor vessel. It's still gonna be little like it is. It's just not gonna be like you fall off the sidewalk like getting in. It's gonna be way better, just not bigger vessels. So.
I'm curious about the NOAA grant. I mean, I know we have someone on staff who helps with grants, but we don't have anybody on staff who writes the grants, and each department has to write their own grants.
Yeah, the consultant who will hopefully be awarded this project has like great grant people, and
Awesome.
they know people at NOAA, and so I'm hoping that they are able to coordinate with that and say exactly what needs to be said on the applications in order to get the money we need. And so they know the players, and so hopefully we can.
So this is pretty much on Clearwater. I mean, because I know all the municipalities, Safety Harbor and Oldsmar are all like dying for this to happen. You know, they're all suffering under the water pollution issues.
Right. So, yeah, this project is huge, huge, huge for Old Tampa Bay. The dredging of Cooper's Bayou, like at the very north end of Cooper's Bayou, is an area of pyridinium spores, which is what causes red tide. And so dredging that and actually removing the spores is going to be a huge thing. Having greater, the solution to pollution is dilution. And so when we have like greater water flow in that area, like when we have Tampa Bay is actually flowing like Safety Harbor, we're gonna have flow, water's coming down from the Tarpon outfall, and we're actually gonna be able to move it right around the causeway and actually be able to move water through there better. Really hoping that it will help the algae issues. I've paddled in that area many times, and one time I paddled up to see, I might have told you guys this already. I went up to see the fireworks in Safety Harbor from my kayak, and I'm like, this is great. We watched it from our kayak, and then paddling back. Very cool, but really, really bad is we saw the bioluminescent algae like as we're paddling, and we're like, oh, it's so pretty, lovely, and it's like that's bad stuff. And it's like we don't want that in our water, even though it's very pretty, but not good.
It's a tourist attraction.
It is, and I'm like, you can keep it a tourist attraction. Just teach people that it's not a good thing. Like, but yeah. So we have so much support from the Tampa Bay Estuary Program. If they could give us $1 billion for the project, they would. They have promised to help us however they can. They have written letters to senators and everything, and so we have a lot of support. We just need people to open their pocketbooks. So yeah, we have some. Yeah, we need support from people who have money. That's it.
Several years ago, you toured the Environmental Advisory Board at Cooper's Point.
Mm-hmm.
And how does that fit in? Because it's really not open to public access unless, it's a formal, part of the portfolio, but it's probably one of the most interesting
Absolutely.
pieces of property that the city has in its portfolio. And unknown
to most people.
Yeah.
The property is open to the public. It's just by request only. So they have to call me. I have to let them, open the lock and everything like that to be able to go back there. So long-term plans. There is the building at the corner of Bayshore and Gulf to Bay that is some sports. What is it? Clearwater Sports.
It's the senior games, isn't it?
Senior games, yeah. So that is going to be a trailhead for both the Causeway Trail, the bicycle trail, and then also have bathrooms and things like that. And then the actual trailhead for Cooper's Point will start right there. So you will be able to walk the trails back there. The boardwalk will start there, and so you'll be able to have access. And so that is the ultimate goal. Like, we want to make it a little Weeden Island. Well, really little Weeden Island. But
Does that have to wait for 14 years?
No, this is going to be done. Like,
that part will be
done by then. Yeah. So my goal. This is
That's
my
not-
goal. My
That's
goal
not a
is
70 or 80 million dollar project.
yeah. So costs just keep going up. So the sooner we can get the grant funding, the sooner we can get it done. I anticipate, don't hold me to this because everything delays, but
They are recording.
I know. About a year and a half for the final design and get all the permitting done is what I anticipate. It will probably take about that long. And they're constantly looking for grants, so whatever's available. We do sometimes have to wait on grant cycles, you know, even if it's awarded, sometimes you still gotta wait a year to actually get stuff, but, you know, we have a contract actually with the people who hopefully are awarded it already, to look at grants for the city anyway and to apply for things. So they're already looking at that NOAA grant, for this project. So we have a jump start on that, and so hopefully, yeah, way less than 14 years.
So how big is the cut actually on our side? Is it 400 feet?
It's almost 400.
Okay.
And it's not a bridge. Like, it looks like a giant culvert, so it's at grade. So most people, unless you know that they did it and you watch construction, most people aren't even gonna realize that you're going over something, because it's just a giant culvert at grade, going over. So it'll look just like the one on the other side that you don't even realize you're going over. So, yeah.
Any other comments?
Just that we probably, as Sarah gets closer to the final design, we'll be able to ask, the Florida legislature for an allocation. We'll be able to potentially request these TDC dollars for a project like this, that will have the ability to bring in people from other areas, and as Sarah said, the ability to mitigate some of the red tide issues, both of which would reduce tourism. So there are other options out there. We'll also be talking about what the city's actual dollar funding would be. So as we get into the budget process, we'll probably talk a little more, especially with you all. I think we have it scheduled for either January or April this time. I think our budget meeting discussion is going to be good.
Okay. Any comments from the audience? All right, we'll move on. Thank you very much, sir. Item 5.2, update on Parks and Recreation Master Plan.
Good afternoon, Matthew Anderson, Assistant Director of Parks and Recreation. I want to give you the update. I don't know how familiar you are with the process, but our original master plan, the one that we have been working off of, was first developed in 2002. It had an update in 2013. So this has been a long time coming for us, and we're really excited about it. Just to give you a little brief history and timeline, we've had numerous other departments working on this. So planning, neighborhoods, also public communications, they've all been helping giving feedback and input and working with us with all of the different public meetings and things like that. We're using Tool Design Group, and they're a national company. They do this all over the country, and they do a really good job. They actually brought in some new techniques that I didn't even know were available. There's a company called Streetlight, which actually uses cell phone tower data to show usage of parks. So they were able to purchase some of this data to give us a snapshot of usage at the various different parks. And we took basically the map of the city and just sort of picked parks in different areas of the city to sort of come up with as close of an average usage as we could. So that was really beneficial for this program. They also did 20 individual stakeholder meetings with groups that are involved, public-private partnerships. But to go back, we started with our kickoff meeting in March of this year. That's where we met with the consultant, all of the senior management in parks, and really devised what the outcome we were looking for. One of the big things we're excited about is we're going to be able to align our master plan with the city's new strategic plan that was put in place earlier in the year. After that initial kickoff meeting, Tool came through and started all their processes with Streetlight data and the various different methods that they use to compare us to other cities and our Parks Department and other Parks Departments. We actually, during the Coachman grand opening, we were able to use the online survey at our welcome booth the entire time. And people could fill out the online park survey and get a t-shirt in exchange for doing it. It was a Coachman Park commemorative t-shirt. So that was really a good opportunity to get some feedback. I don't want to say we bought feedback, but there was at least, there was a prize for taking the time to stop, visit, and fill out the survey. It was very positive, the feedback. In July of 2023, myself and some of the other managers took the different design team around to our parks so that they could get out and walk. They have a specific list of all the different items that they essentially grade us on. So we went through all of our parks. We guided them on some, and some other ones they wanted to go on their own and just sort of self-explore. Also in July, we held the master plan open house meetings. So we had them at 3 different locations: North Greenwood Rec, the Long Center, and the Clearwater Main Library. And that was where citizens could come in, put stickers and things on the various different activities and things they'd like to see. They got to talk to the consultants, talk to park staff, and really give the feedback. And it was all positive, and it ranged anywhere from more sports tourism to more trees and more parks. It was a really nice, broad view of what the citizens wanted to see in the future for the parks that they utilize. Coming to September, we got that survey memo. So at that point, they've taken all the data they've gathered, and they basically made us a nice, a very high overview look of what they found to this point, park conditions, what they see from staff, and other things that are lacking or good on. So we found out what they feel we're lacking on, but also the things that we do really well, which was good feedback for us because we took it. They had a visioning workshop, and it was not only park staff, it was also public communications, planning and development staff, along with neighborhood staff. And that's where we really sat down and took that data and helped start to design what the outlook is going to be, come up with a vision statement for Parks and Rec and those type of items. Move forward October, we actually had the implementation and strategy meeting next Monday on the 30th. And that's where we'll really get down to what they've taken to that point and also the feedback from the vision meeting. And this is all building up to be finished this year. In early December, there's going to be another public meeting. It'll be the last public meeting. It'll be a Zoom meeting, so you'll be able to sign in from home. And they're going to basically present where they are to this point, take feedback through messages, and there will be some time for question and answers at the end. They'll basically make that presentation, and the thought to that versus having an in-person meeting. This time of year, everybody's so busy preparing for the holidays and various things. It's an hour long. Most people have the time to pop on and basically view this information and be able to provide any additional feedback they have through that messaging portion on Zoom. That link will be pushed out on our website, and it will also be pushed out through the various social media sources that the city uses to get information out. And then it's going to boil down to on December 19th is when the master plan will be taken to city council and be presented. So at that point, we will have our vision, our goals, everything will be worked out, and we will be able hopefully to start implementing as soon as possible. Council obviously will review it and have an opportunity to make comments and things like that. But our hopes is that after the first of the year, we can start implementing. So at this point, I can answer any specific questions you may or may not have.
Any questions?
I just have a quick question.
Yes.
Based on your utilization, seeing what parks were being utilized, was it what you expected or?
You know, some were and some weren't. Some of the smaller parks get utilized a lot more than we ever realized, and that's one of those things because they receive a lower maintenance schedule as far as touches per year. Because some of them are the more natural parks where we go through pick up trash, empty trash cans, and basically maintain the trails. But there's a lot more people utilizing them than we realized, and obviously others, the beach, Crest Lake Park, those type parks they're heavily utilized. We knew that, and we got what we expected. There was no real surprises other than the amount. There was none where like, oh, I can't believe anybody doesn't use that park. So that was positive.
I was going to ask the same thing. And then from that information, sorry, just to back on the question really quick. Were there any changes that you, like you said, about the passes for maintenance at some of the smaller parks noting some the use was different? Are there some things you're going to change now?
We'll essentially have all that. We've seen the high overview of it, but they'll actually lay that out in the steps system on how we can improve those things. And we're going to take all that once we get it because we're to that point, like I said, where we've got the implementation coming up. We haven't seen the full plan. We've obviously got the survey results and the percentages and things, but they're working on getting us the guides on how to proceed based off of that last meeting where we talk about our vision on where we're going to be. So it's exciting for us too because we don't really know exactly. We have an idea of the path that we'll be on, but we don't have the full path yet. So we'll be getting this in.
Sorry.
I know I went to the one in March or the one in July.
July.
The Long Center.
Yeah.
And you know, when we went to put up on stickers and stuff like that, there was no ability to, to just throw out some sustainability ideas. I don't know if there was some free form, but it was structured in a way I talked to the consultant, I said, well, you know, I came with like a handful of things that, you know, that have come up, sustainability suggestions that would make some of the parks, or certainly for some of the rec centers, like the EV charging stations, and some of the parks even, you know, if there was a capability there. You know, looking at the herbicide and pesticide issue, or, and then there were others, I just know when, I mean, just in terms of, on the online, I'm trying to remember if I went online, or if that was, I guess my question is, from a sustainability standpoint, has there been outreach, like, you know, do you feel like adequate outreach on that, or depending kind of on the neighborhoods, department to kind of give you that, or?
Well, I mean, we have, I know green print was utilized by Tool. Now, I don't know, I can't speak specifically because until recently I didn't have tons of involvement in the project. Carrie Marcellak, who was our liaison with Tool, she, working for the city. So I've sort of taken over the role in the later stages. But I can certainly, ask how in depth they went with that and get back with you on it. But I don't have a specific answer to this time.
Okay, if they look at those goals, I mean, that would be helpful.
Yeah. And as far as the survey, there was opportunity for freeform. I don't know if you got to take it or not. There was a time when you could go on the internet from one of the social media sources and fill it out. So I know there was an opportunity at that point, and also at the meetings. I know we accepted Post-its and things on it. And if you didn't get what you were trying to achieve, I apologize. I wasn't at the one.
No, I don't want to be in any way critical.
No, but I appreciate the feedback because this is helpful to us. So.
Yeah, but I talked to the consultant, I said, so where do you make these suggestions,
Right.
Like, I'll write these down on my stick on them, but there's no real category for this or anything exact. The way it was structured, it just wasn't, he said, well, we didn't really, no, we didn't really put that, so I don't know if I want to do online.
And we did, on the staff side, both the neighborhoods division and sustainability prior to Cassie starting, met with them at the Tool, and we had some conversation, identified some things that they weren't aware of. I think we have a follow-up meeting coming up with them to discuss them next week.
Yeah, I believe you'll have some kind of implementation.
Yep. So we've been engaged with them as well.
That's awesome.
And I know Sam was at the last meeting, and I know Cassie wasn't, but I know Sharon at some point, I remember sitting down, having her in the conversation with it. So hopefully every group in the city had their opportunity to put input, whether it be citizen, internal, not just parks, but other departments. I feel like there was really good feedback from all groups involved, just from what I was able to see. So.
Okay. Thanks.
Absolutely.
Any other comments from the board?
I just have one little comment.
Yes.
I have grandkids who live out of state that come stay with me and visit, and their parents all think your parks are wonderful.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
And I've enjoyed many parks in the city, and they've all been great.
We appreciate that feedback. We certainly put our best effort to that way. So.
Any comments from the audience? Thank you very much. All right, we'll move on to our next item then, 5.3, update on policy to maintain the City of Clearwater's urban forests. Assistant City Manager, Dan Slaughter, thank you for joining us.
Good to see you all. Dan Slaughter, Assistant Manager. First and foremost, I want to say thank you. The board, this is kind of our third time being able to kind of have a discussion about this with you. We did one, Chuck Lane had presented and spoke with you and got some feedback. We used that feedback. You were very kind to accommodate the schedule with the council and look at it via email and give me some feedback as well. We produced a document that the council has since approved that I wanted to share with you today. We did, as our driving focus, use the council strategic plan, which speaks to environmental stewardship, specifically in this particular case, protecting the conservation of the urban forest and the public green spaces. But we also use this as an opportunity to support our neighborhoods through the identity through services and programs that empower community pride and belonging, and also inspire citizen participation through civic engagement and volunteerism to build strong, inclusive, engaged communities. Where we ended up was we will prioritize our trees, our urban forest. What that means is that as we experience conflicts that are going to happen. We are going to do everything possible to try to work around those conflicts that prioritizes saving the tree. So when we experience cracked sidewalks, cracked curb lines, underground utilities, if there is a way to route around it, we will route around it. Certainly there are times, and I did find right off the bat after making this promise, there was one where it was would have cost me an expensive amount of money to go much further into the road than we ever would have wanted to or imagined, and that was not possible based on the engineer's feedback. But when it is possible, we will do that, and it will be something that is clearly communicated to our staff. We will reconstitute the tree survey. There was a great model in place already for that, where we will touch one of 5 zones every 5 years. So every tree theoretically will get looked at once every 5 years. We have since been working on kind of reconstituting with the vendor to provide that service. And certainly we'll do a better job as communicating what that looks like to our residents. I know a while back there was some confusion about the tags and what it looked like and what it meant. We will certainly be much more advanced in how we communicate that information. We're going to commit to removing dead and decaying trees that are rated 0. I jokingly explain this as there was a debate about doing 1s and 0s, and 1s are not, they're certainly dead and decaying, but not dead yet. I kind of explained it like, if my grandma's in the hospital and they're saying she's got, not much longer to live, we're not going to put her down. So we're going to do the same approach to our trees. We're going to let our trees live out as much as of their life as they can, and only remove the 0s. I say that, but there will be life safety issues that we will have to address and certainly accommodate. But the purpose of how we were communicating this is we just want the staff to understand our prioritization is preserving and saving the trees when possible and keeping the trees. The last time, I think, we probably stumbled a little bit with some of the notification process. I think there was some good intentions by some people, but I think in the end, we wanted to have a defined process that requires us to try to attempt to contact a resident that has an adjoining tree to their property in one of 3 ways, and they kind of try either all 3 or keep going until one's successful. First, of course, we'll try to make personal contact by knocking on the door. Secondly, we'll definitely use a hang tag, and then fortunately we have contact information through our utilities billing that we will try to contact them by phone or via email. In addition to that, we're adding in another element that we will notify the homeowners association when those tree removals are going to occur as well through our neighborhood association, if there is in fact an identified homeowners association that's active and has contact information. Our neighborhood services person has a great log of all the neighborhood associations that we're aware of, and we will utilize her as a tool to notify them via email. We think that'll even help with if we try to contact a resident, they're not at home, we put a door hanger and we still can't get a hold of them on the phone. We think that the neighborhood association might be the ones that say, hey, you know what, they're in Italy this week, and we can even pause if we have to and make some really good value judgments based on that. So we'll be much more diligent in our communication in our neighborhoods. I did mention that we wouldn't remove trees when they're not 0s, when there is life safety issues. We will reserve that right if there's a tree that's leaning or something of some nature, just to, we certainly wouldn't want somebody to get injured while walking on a sidewalk or a roadway. And but we will require those to be reviewed at the Public Works Department Director level. Okay, so it won't happen with like a tree vendor that's doing our trimming for us. It will be done at the Department Director level when they're not rated 0. We also want to promote and encourage, and this hadn't been done before, I don't believe, but to let our residents actually participate in the maintenance of those trees that are in the right-of-way in front of their homes. Although those are right-of-ways, much like you're responsible for maintaining your grass, the code actually does allow for citizens to maintain trees and that are in front of their property. In fact, it even requires you to kind of keep an 8-foot clearance above the sidewalks and all those other things. We're still going to do our trimming efforts, and certainly will respond if they're in the right of way and somebody refers it to us. But if there is someone who's an enthusiast and passionate about the trees and they want to do a much more commitment to pruning them to help them remain healthy, we certainly don't want to discourage that. So that is kind of a new add. We are going to have a planting program, a replacement program, that we will plant 5 trees for every 4 we removed. So in theory, we're trying to not only, one of 2 things. I mean, we're going to grow the urban forest if we can. So if we remove 4, we want to hopefully add 5. But we also recognize that trees with plant life, they don't always survive either. So it'll account for some of those trees that may not survive and hopefully keep us in a positive territory. The places that we'll choose to plant those will be in, when we remove a tree, try to put it in the near vicinity of the tree that's being replaced. So if you have one that's in the front of your right of way and it's removed, we're going to talk to the homeowner, try to potentially put it right place, right tree within the yard, or maybe even some neighborhoods have very narrow right of ways, but some have large ones. So we could potentially accommodate that in some areas, but not all. But we're going to try to put it in the same area. If that doesn't work, we're going to try to keep it in the same neighborhood. If that doesn't work, we're going to stay within the same zone. And that'll be our kind of our mantra and how we're going to move forward with that. Like I said, we'll also have an adopt a tree program, and we're going to work internally to create a kind of a promotion of a stewardship program for a neighborhood association. If a neighborhood wishes to kind of enter into a pact with the city that they're going to commit to, identifying residents in their neighborhood that want to have a tree, that they'll commit to taking care of the tree, watering the tree, monitoring the tree, keeping the tree healthy, then we'll provide the tree, and we'll have this symbiotic relationship where we'll both commit as stewards to this tree. And we hope to create some designator for the community that kind of recognizes it, whether it's like a sign or some other kind of accreditation stamp type thing that would say that, hey, you are a tree. Right now, the name that's being batted around by people that are much smarter than me, because I can never come up with good acronyms, is the City of Clearwater Root Neighborhood, like that. It kind of promotes certainly a connection to the tree, but also the neighborhood's kind of being the root of our community. So I really thought that was a beautiful concept that we're working on. And so to kind of move all this stuff forward, we're currently, just recently with the assistance of Parks and Recs, we recently just kind of got the palm vendor, the palm tree pruning vendor back on place. We're working on getting the survey back in place, and we'll have to get a couple other vendor services in line, and to kind of go to get all this stuff kind of up and running. I think we're pretty well funded for it. We certainly are going to use the rest of the year to kind of gauge what our funding level is and see if we need to ask for additional council funds in the following budget year. So we do feel currently that there is adequate funds for us to accomplish what we've been kind of empowered to do so far. So I'll be more than happy to answer any questions. And I do really want to say thank you. We did incorporate. I ran through this really fast. There was some addition in here about trying to have our education campaign that will kind of specify or give people an idea how they can find their right of way. That was one of the feedback, and I don't think you guys saw each other's feedback because we did it one-on-one style through the email. And I think at one of the meetings that I saw that Chuck did, one of the residents or one of the board members had wanted to make sure that we kind of told people how they could find out where the right of way lines were. I think some feedback on some invasives that's going to be something I'm going to learn to walk before I run, before I start trying to address any invasives that are in the private property and stuff. But certainly the code allows us to address invasives in the public right of way already. But certainly something that we're looking to be more diligent as we move forward. And I think the other feedback was pretty much positive. So, more than happy to answer your questions.
Thank you very much, Dan. Any comment from the board?
I have a question. When you talk about removing trees and replacing them, do you replace them with the same tree, or how does that work?
It depends. We're going to identify the species that we'll support, and certainly we're going to pick tree species based on what locations we have too. So certainly there are very narrow right-of-ways that have oak trees in them that we probably won't do that again. But there are species that we could potentially put there, but if the resident doesn't necessarily care for that particular tree in that particular place, we can certainly do oaks, maybe if they want to give certain areas up in their yards, maybe closer between the sidewalk, their side of the sidewalk. So we're going to kind of try to negotiate that. But we're going to identify a few species of trees with certain conditions that will let them kind of help.
That's good. So you'll have latitude, so common sense can be applied.
That's what we're trying. It's tough in government because I think we're all pulled aside as government employees and say you're not allowed to have common sense when you come here, but we're trying to change that.
I know I live in a community that has a HOA, and all of the trees that were planted when they built the property are totally wrong for the space. And it's cost a lot of money for the association.
Yeah, and we're also trying to be sensitive too now that some of those neighborhoods have very beautiful canopies right now, and we're kind of concerned that many of those trees will start to die off at the same time. So we're trying to figure out a way to weave into that and kind of start developing the new forest to help take over for the old, if that makes any sense, but probably take brighter minds than mine. That's that.
Do you think so do you have, are the vendors or staff going to be mostly maintaining the trees? And, or do you have enough staff to maintain the kind of tree canopy that you've got in the forest at this moment?
Yeah, we're really not staffed to do any type of continual maintenance pruning program. We're really, and the staff that we have in place really is designed to deal with more the one-off calls and emergencies that come in throughout the week. We will be dependent on vendors to do the removals that are approved through our people though, but they'll actually do the removals, they'll do the stump grinding, they'll do the trimming, and we'll have vendors on staff that can do pruning and maintenance as well. We just won't be able to commit to pruning all 20,000 trees once every 5 years. At this time, we don't have enough funds or staff to even manage that. But that's why I say that may change, because there's a lot of support internally in the city to try to do more from a maintenance standpoint, but we just don't have the operational capacity. I'm kind of new into my role, so I've been measuring our operational capacity, and I have good people that want to do more than they actually can do well. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Or, I mean, you've had more staff in the past too. It's my understanding, right?
Well, I don't necessarily know. I mean, we're very, this public works venture is new for us, and that's where it falls underneath right now. That's the department that I'm responsible for. But we still, we have a lot of work that's done by our parks beautification team. A lot of work is done. Your center medians pretty much are all done and maintained by your parks beautification. So my team's not having to worry about that, which is a huge load off of our back. We're not mowing medians. We're not doing any of that stuff. That's done by a separate department. So ours is just really going to be managing those neighborhood trees, and we'll help support parks with some other tree maintenance that they'll do in the parks with the vendors that we'll have on staff. But we're trying to get a good relationship too. Matt was very helpful when I was working on this, I can tell you for sure. Hopefully that answers.
I want to say one thing on that. The tree pruning is really important. I know in our complex, this last year we lost like 6 palms, and it came from the fact that the people they had hired to do the pruning didn't do it properly, and so they transferred disease from tree to tree to tree, and we lost multiple trees. It's a really important skill set and something to be very cognizant of.
When we did the RFP for the palm vendors that we selected, all of them are required to do the sanitation that's required between trees. Certainly, we will be using our staff to spot check the vendor to try to make sure that they're doing exactly what they're required to do. And hopefully we won't find them not to be non-compliant, but we would address it if we did.
Yeah, my point is just that it's a skill set that's probably best subbed out.
Yes.
Doing it in-house.
Yes, ma'am.
Does Grandma know about the metaphor you used? The tree tag info, I'm curious if that would be, we talked about the pesticides earlier and putting that kind of public front facing. Is there a way that people might, if they see a tag on their tree, they can type in that tag info and it'll pull up and say, this tree is going to be touched in 5 years. It was just previously, pruned in whatever years. It's something more like that.
Absolutely. Actually, I tend to kind of redo the whole web page that's dedicated to the urban forest, and hopefully, if we can get the GIS database of the tree survey kind of built out the way I'd like it, you theoretically can go in there, put your number, see the tree, and see the data that you have. That's what I hope to do, and then certainly public facing will explain to them what all that information is and how it is, and try to incorporate it in some of our neighborhoods association meetings that we're talking about it, because we always hear like, well, I didn't know, nobody told me. Well, there's 3 ways that you could have got it. It's just, we know that we got to spoon feed that information at times.
Yeah. And then this kind of was all spurred from a project the city was doing earlier, late last year and this year. Is the city still working on that tree project, or is that going to start again after this was complete, or where is that?
If the tree project you're referring to is the kind of when we were doing a lot of removals, that essentially ceased, and then we rebuilt it based on this model. Now there were many good components of that previous model, and some very good people that were trying to do the right thing, So, the survey and the method in which we're actually cataloging trees, and, but we're just have a little more structure to certain other parts. And the big thing that was missing in the last one probably was a tree replacement program. That is certainly in this one. So we're building off of this document that I probably should have brought copies for you, but I don't know if you all kind of read it on the council agenda before, but this is what we're going to build from. And they'll be creating operational policies that are congruent with this moving forward.
And I think I've heard you say this before, the right tree in the right place. Is there a way that those trees that will be used will be put on like a website so residents can look up and learn more about the tree?
Yeah, no reason we couldn't put it on that webpage. Certainly I intended to create kind of rack cards for the species that we said, so even when we plant them, we can give it or even go over it and people can pick. And we hopefully, those would be dual purpose for us. We could use them at like the Arbor Day tree giveaway. Could get, if you're going to take the tree, here's responsible people what you need to do with it.
Yeah.
Because, they all get big.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. The trees at the tree giveaway are pretty small, and if you're not, thinking a few years, put them far enough away from a right of way or a power line, you're gonna have a problem.
Matt can speak to it better than me, but
Yeah.
in the early years of the tree too, there's even some pruning that's very critical, more critical at that age than any other tree.
All right.
You've got me thinking as an HOA president of a neighborhood who has a fabulous oak tree canopy. Oh, so I'm looking forward to the opportunity for neighborhoods to be involved in tree maintenance. And so, but you were saying like you're thinking about, I'm sorry, my mind's going like, what our neighborhood want to be a tree root neighborhood? I understand the root,
Yeah, what is the acronym?
So I was afraid you would ask me
Yeah.
that. I was like responsible for.
I'm starting here. I can see my neighborhood wanting to be the urban forest.
We might be in the same neighborhood.
Huh?
We might be in the same neighborhood.
Are we talking about the same neighborhood?
I think we live in the same one, do we not? I
Do
think-
you live in not my neighborhood?
Maybe.
Morningside?
No, I'm worried about. No, I'm sorry. I thought you were
No,
Coach Rich.
what about a tree canopy anyway?
Well, we can certainly, it's in creation stage now. If the feedback from the board is that you want us to have multiple different options, but, yeah.
No, I'm sorry, my mind's just moving in that direction.
Good. All right.
Any other comments from the board? Any comments from the audience? Please come forward. State your name for the clerk. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think this is a terrific presentation because the agenda for the Parks and Rec Master Plan and the tree, and it causes me to wonder what is in the Parks and Rec plan relative to the urban canopy, and maybe that can be addressed for the group. Diversity of trees. I think many times we have put in
Sir, excuse me, I'm sorry. What is your name?
Bill Johnson.
Thank you.
Yeah. Is too often we put palm trees where they're not traditional in an urban area. I also wonder about the possibility of putting more trees in commercial areas. We have some parking lots that are just wide open paved surfaces that never have cars filled up. And then the last thing I would ask about is what the city's tree policy does as far as enforcing the state mandated arborist certification before trees are declared and cut down. I don't know what the policy is on that. Is there any publication to the neighborhoods of, by the way, if you see a tree coming down, you should ask to see the appropriate arborist certification, or I know that that's something that the city of Canton does. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Bill.
Hi, Brian Beckman. A couple of questions. One, from time to time, I get people inquiring to me about, hey, did you know about this tree that got cut down? And so what would you give folks as instruction should they go on, I was just looking at it, on Clearwater Connect and report something like that if they see what they might consider to be a problem or they have a question about it? So that would be something might be helpful for many of us. Two, with the recent flooding from the recent hurricane there on North Beach, I'm wondering if there's any assessment or recommendations going forward that I know when I have gone there to those neighborhoods, you see a lot of shrubbery and some trees that were affected by that have looked like they're dying. And so I'd be interested in whether that's something that the city is starting to take into account with those situations that have come up recently. Thanks.
Are you going to answer this question, Jen?
To Mr. Johnson's question, certainly I'll take the one that I think, as far as the city enforcement, certainly an arborist that removes a tree has to still get the city permit as they would, whether it's on private property or on any other area, commercial property. So to get that permit, it would need to be an arborist. Now, if someone saw it and they wants to verify it, as was reflected, we could certainly do it through Clearwater Connects. Certainly, we're never going to turn away a phone call or any other medium in which somebody chooses to contact us. But the most efficient one would be through Clearwater Connects. To go in there, give us the address. We can check and see if there was an adequate or permit pulled. I just dealt with one on a commercial property over the weekend or a couple weekends ago, in which case it was part of a development plan. So we can certainly look into it and provide the feedback to the resident. And if it's not in compliance, we'll certainly address it. The response to the shrubbery on North Beach and whether or not there's an assessment, that hasn't been something we've discussed yet. It's certainly something I can think about. Certainly there was significant saltwater intrusion and there's going to be impact to that. And we would certainly not want to see people not replace stuff that was lost. So we would certainly encourage that, but certainly don't necessarily want to go out there and assess those people when they're still angry that they got flooded. So we'll address it diplomatically.
Very well. Thank you very much. And then, Matt, are you able to answer Bill's question?
Yeah, I can answer something. I think you were referring to the state ordinance where an arborist can write a letter essentially saying the tree is dangerous and then remove it without a permit. That would really be a question for planning and development on their processes. Parks, I don't want to speak for them, public works as well, does not deal with private property. The way planning and development oversees private property, tree removal, basically tree protection where it stands over right of ways. This group is, and then myself and the rest of the parks owners over the parks. So you would need to direct that question to them because they have the specifics on how they handle it. With regards to, I'm sorry, I'm Matt Anderson, this is correct if I didn't say my name. With regards to the master plan and trees and working with Public Works, we've continued to work with Public Works as this tree plan has been developed. We continue to work with Public Works to help with the tree planting portion of it because we have parkland that's available to plant trees when neighborhoods aren't in the right place. Right tree, right place, we have it in the right place if it needs to be. We're going to continue, as we always have, to be good stewards of our trees and our parks. Let's see. With regards to the shrubbery on North Beach, particularly at CBRC Rec Center, Beach Walk, and some of our other park areas on the beach, we had the same issues with flooding from the storm surge. We've been monitoring, particularly like CBRC Rec Center, around the tennis courts, that wind screen hedge has died. So we've been monitoring because there are times with enough rain and irrigation they're able to come back. We don't want to remove something that's not completely dead. We're getting to that point where we're seeing what is officially dead from storm surge and whatnot. And in a lot of ways, particularly with CBRC, we're looking at putting more sustainable planting because podocarpus doesn't do well with salt spray, let alone salt intrusion. No plant does really well when it's fully inundated other than sea oats and other true aquatic species, but we're going to put a species that will do better. Paddle plant is one that's been thrown around, and there's some other species that we're swapping out on Beach Walk with that will do better with mild saltwater intrusion. that's our plan as far as park property with solar furniture.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Any other questions? All right. We'll move on to our next item, 5.4, recycling update.
This was more just of an informational item. We approved the contract for Waste Connections between our last meeting and this meeting. That normally would not come to this board, but I know there was a lot of interest about us getting someone on board, so I can confirm that we do have a vendor on board. Additionally, in August, the council considered, it was August or September, considered a refund for a 6-month period, varying amounts based on customer type. But you know, that 6-month credit went into effect that time. So those are not necessarily action items for the board. We will likely have some conversation points coming out of some Pinellas County solid waste ordinance adjustments when they've decided what those adjustments are going to be, so that we can keep you up to date on kind of what might come out of it. Some of it may be composting, some of it may be just different ways that recycling is delivered. But we'll have some more information about that when the county makes some decisions. We'll get that right forward to you.
All right. And as far as in the past, there's been conversations about a MRF facility with the
Yeah,
county.
that's part of the conversation that the county is having. It really comes down to whether or not they're going to include flow control in their recycling and solid waste ordinance. We anticipate that they will. If they do that, then they can go out and do an RFP for a county MRF or a private MRF and decide whether or not they think they're going to be able to get some good responses for that. That was a major issue for the last set of responses for a private MRF in the county. There was no guarantee of delivery of materials. It was just an estimate, and the comments really sort of revolved around needing to have some guarantee about that. That's where the flow control ordinance comes in.
And the only other thing I was going to say is residents can check how much recycling is being recycled on the city website.
Yep. The city website always does have a recycling dashboard up there that talks about, both from a monthly and annual perspective, how much we're recycling.
Any other comments from the board?
I just have one question. With the new vendor, does that give us an opportunity to extend our capacity of what we can take in recycling? Like the materials?
Yeah, the materials are mostly the same, and that's really equipment based. There may be some options when we get into the countywide option, whether it's run by the county or run by a private organization. It's Dan's right here. I'll hand it off to him.
Just with regard to Waste Connections, is that that particular vendor is not doing our cardboard for us. We're currently working on the cardboard. That's a separate service, and we're kind of trying to figure out the bale or loose cardboard right now. And Waste Connections, we're still collecting all the streams that we had been before, but glass is not one that they actually deal with. They end up discarding it and sorting it through there. We searched, and the only legitimate place to take glass is like Naples, so it is not going to be economically feasible for us to do glass. We're going to still collect it in that stream because we certainly, it's hard enough to get the public educated in this space as it is. We're not going to try to disrupt the apple cart at this point. But just, I think to your question, I wanted you to know through transparency that that's what we're doing. We're doing about 650 tons a month, vary between there and 750 tons a month right now.
Well, and if you're looking at composting, you can use cardboard in composting.
Sure.
So there might be a possibility there.
And this is really what they're talking about is commercial composting, from what I understand. At least that's what they've told me.
Okay.
So we'll see what it looks like.
And we'll have a market for our cardboard. We have to, that's just a separate negotiation.
Thank you very much. Any comments from the audience? All right. Hearing none, we'll move on to our next item. Are we going to just go back to 4.4, review near-term items with the
Yeah, this is the part where we would go back and identify what we were planning to talk about at the next meeting, next couple of meetings, and add or subtract whatever it is you all feel like we need or want to. So in January, that's when we want to talk about some of the budgetary priorities. We'll probably talk about Cooper's Bayou as part of that. Obviously, that's a big budget number. I haven't heard the 70 to 80 million yet, but that's a big number. The green print implementation update, it's something Cassie and I and Melody have been working on, trying to go back through green print, identify some updated implementation approaches. So we'll be bringing that back to you in January to kind of talk to you about what our plans are for implementing the different sections of green print. And whether or not there's some adjustments that need to be made for green print itself, because that's always possible. Something new has come up. Also, just a little update on Ready for 100. That was one that was passed I believe it was last year around this time. So we want to give you a year update. This Lynch is very passionate about that item as well. So we definitely want to do it when she's in attendance. So we'll be getting that as well at the January meeting. If we have the ability for some additional information on something like Cooper's Bayou or the Recreation Master Plan, we'll bring it forward. But those will all be timing based on just kind of what the timing is for whether or not there's the ability to have something. In April, hoping to give an update on solar. We're going through the process right now of getting roofs and then solar installed after the roofs. Right now, our focus is on the general services building on Hercules. It's an install that should capture about 80% of the electricity for the building. So we're excited about that. That's our first large solar project. The first solar project was Imagine, but this one is our first really large direct one that we're excited about. And then in July, we want to give an update on Synergistic, the year 2 impacts of Synergistic, how much we might have saved, and from both a dollar and a CO2 perspective. And then revisit our legislative priorities. Of course, we made that adjustment to the list. We're going to bring it forward at least to City Council for their meeting. And that is what we have right now. Now, I will need to figure out the timing for planning as it relates to that fee-based information. We can certainly bring something back in the January meeting, but I'll get some more information on when they would anticipate coming forward with something for consideration. But if there are other items, we can certainly add them here as well.
All right, great. Does anyone have any items they'd like to add or discuss?
To our agendas for the next few months?
Yeah, the next few months.
I understand City Hall is at 30% planning.
I'm not sure if it's at 30% or not yet. It is not here.
We'd like to have a presentation if possible.
Yeah, we can certainly try to schedule something. They've met with us. We had a meeting with them maybe about 3 weeks ago, I guess it probably was, Cassie and I and Melody. So we had some conversation about, what sustainable, environmentally positive things they're looking at doing. It was an early conversation, so it's definitely on the radar, and we want to make sure that we're engaged in that process, especially when we get into the value engineering portion. Really impacts of, if we get to a point where they drive the price up, well, what's the long-term impact from a carbon footprint and a cost perspective that may offset that one-time capital dollar spent. So we'll keep an eye on that and bring it forward as soon as they can give us something that's tangible.
Okay.
On to the next item.
Oh, I have a couple of things I guess if anybody else, if no one else is. I had an email, and I shared it with you, I think I shared it to you all, about a possible shark fishing, shore shark fishing ban. Indian Shores passed one in September, and I was contacted by someone in Clearwater Beach who was interested in us looking at pursuing, or at least getting information on how that would look if the city would do something similar. I think there's a lot of challenges that the city would have with something like that based on wording that Indian Shores had, but think it's at least worth looking into, considering tiger sharks are endangered, and what spurred the ordinance in Indian Shores was fishermen leaving the carcasses on the beach, and one of them was a pregnant female, so it was 5 baby sharks and the female who died on the beach there. And then I was also contacted by the Suncoast Surfrider Foundation about an initiative to push back on phosphogypsum roads, and so might try to see about having a presentation about their initiative to not have radioactive roads even tested in communities. They're trying to get support from all over, from municipalities throughout the state to, like I said, kind of push back on the use of the phosphogypsum. So those were the 2 things that I'd like to possibly see if we could have. Anything else? No? All right.
Can they make a presentation on that? I mean, do they have like background material to
Mhm.
take a look at?
Yeah, certainly. Yeah.
If you take their contact information.
Yeah, I'll
certainly
circle the loop there for that. Yeah, no problem. All right, anything else? All right, we'll move on to our next item then. Director's report.
I think we're good.
We're good there?
Let's do it.
All right.
Yes.
All right, board members to be heard. We'll start, Kelly.
Okay.
All right. John.
Just like to acknowledge that we've had some really great presentations in the past, but I was really impressed this evening with the breadth of the different issues that have been brought to the board this evening. I think it really helps us feel plugged into what's happening in the city, what's important. And just the quality, in spite of no graphics. You learned a lot. And so thank you to everyone who put up on the agenda and participated. So thanks.
Yeah, on that. I understand there's a unveiling of the EV charging stations at Coachman Park coming up. Where is that?
So we're still figuring out when the official unveiling will be. We do have an event scheduled for December 1st.
Mm-hmm.
December 1st, but once they are, right now they work, and I've spoken to parking, and parking is willing to remove the cones and the different restrictions they've got on there, and they may have already done it. That was Thursday or Friday of last week. They're just free at the moment.
No,
right?
I was there last night. I was there night before last.
Did they still have the cones on?
Yep.
Okay, so
they're
going to be yanking those off for us. So they'll be available, but we didn't want to publish the opening announcement for 2 reasons. One, they're not charged yet, which is okay. The second one is the bigger one, and that relates to them not being populated on the network yet for Blink. And it's really more about the confusion as it relates to the use of the app and the charging. Even though it's not charging right now, you have to go through the process to get it to start not charging or start charging for no money, right? So you still have to go through that same process. Yep.
It charges, but it doesn't charge.
Yes.
You just let go through the app.
There's an app, and then there's the other credit card version, and we're still working through some of the issues with the credit card item, if I remember correctly. So some of those challenges as it relates to the interface, we want to make sure are not frustrating, so that when we announce it, people can go and use them, and it's really not a problem. So they are available as soon as parking pulls those things off, but we were going to hold off until it gets populated, until those things have worked out. Melody's been working hard on making sure that happens.
I think today we had them double checked, and I think they are now charging and charging.
Oh.
So I talked to some parking earlier today.
Excellent.
So I think they should be good to go. I was going to actually talk to Mike and tell him to go double check with his car. But I think, yeah, we're in the works with communications about getting that all sent out.
Okay, so stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
Yep, so-
That it would be good if everyone.
Yeah, we definitely aren't gonna wait until December to send something out. We'll send something out sooner rather than later. It's just that the event we got, which will have EV vehicles, and we'll hear all the cats and talk about that event.
But yeah, so we're gonna send out a press release. I already drafted it today. That we'll be working with SACE to have a driving on sunshine event like we've had before. So we're gonna send out a press release announcing that the chargers are open. And then that press release will also mention the event for December 1st. So that should be coming out hopefully this week.
Lovely, thank you. And then also there is a survey on City Hall, the new City Hall is online right now. So if you haven't filled that out, please do, and check all the sustainability. And whatever recreational items that you want can be connected with, from benches to bicycle racks or whatever.
Actually, I do have one more item just for information, if I can. Just so you all are aware, so we've merged a couple of the different groups. Information technology has been reporting to me and will continue to do so. But also, the city manager is deciding to shift building and maintenance and fleet. So general services and fleet under me as well. So we'll have a lot more interaction, direct interaction with our city facilities and our city fleet moving forward, which I think will really help on the sustainability side, making sure that we're using sort of the right approaches to things. So I just wanted to let you all know about that as well.
Yeah, I noticed there were quite a few new trucks at Coachman Park that are all gas powered. So
we've been.
It's trucks.
I think that I'm not sure how new they are. I don't believe we purchased any last year outside of the solid waste vehicles. But we're trying our best to move towards the hybrid. We can still, under the green fleet policy, purchase the gas vehicles, but with what we see as the push towards electric, we're trying to phase the fleet out of natural gas because the stations also will at some point not be something that we really need. So we're starting to work through that, but our focus is on hybrids, and if we can get them, and we've been working on some of the strategies. We'll talk about those in the green print implementation discussion, but we've been working on some strategies to figure out how to get some EV vehicles in-house.
That's great. All right. Any other comment? Okay. I was going to say to kind of piggyback on what you were saying about City Hall. There's a meeting October 30th as well, meeting about the City Hall and Public Plaza at the North Greenwood Rec Center. So you can go out and share your comments there in person as well. Let's take the survey online. I had a couple things I wanted to bring up, and it can be as brief or not. Our council presentation is going to be in November. We normally have a brief discussion about what we're going to talk about, but I went over, for the most part, everything that we did this year or helped support, and the cigarette ban. I'm just going to gloss over it so that we know, and I'll put it together and send it to Micah, who can then send it out to everyone. And if you guys have any ideas or anything I missed or any edits or suggestions, please share that with Micah, who can then share that with me, and then we can put those together for the presentation in November. Date we'll know soon. Exactly. But for the council presentation, we supported the cigarette ban, which the city council unanimously supported. We went through the EAB alignment, kind of refocusing and kind of re-strategizing our board. We helped, as Dan said, with the right-of-way, the tree replanting program, and then had presentations on the Ruth Eckerd Hall sustainability plan, the update on green print, the Clearwater 2045 comprehensive plan, the synergistic energy savings, the solar implementation plan, and today we had our feed aid and pesticides presentations as well. I don't know if I'm missing any other big picture things that we looked at to include, but I think that's everything. And if anybody thinks anything else, obviously, please, share that. And I'll, like I said, put this together and send out. And then the other thing I wanted to bring up, and we've talked about it a number of different times, and I think after our last meeting, whatever else, Mike had mentioned that we don't necessarily need an act of city council to change our frequency. We can do that through a motion ourselves and then kind of have that go through whatever city staff needs to figure out so that we can make that work with also within the time constraints of the staff that has to help staff our meetings. But I think we could increase frequency to 6 times a year, every other month, so we could be January, March, May, July, September, and November. I don't know if that's something that we can look at so that when we start in January, instead of having the 4 dates listed quarterly, we would have those 6 dates, which would, I think, still be the third. Well, today, it's a special meeting on a Monday, but typically we meet the third Wednesday of the month. So I just, like I said, this is meeting more frequently is something that we've talked about a number of times. I think after doing our alignment this year and seeing kind of how I think like what John said, we've had some really meaty agendas, had some really good discussions, and I want to make sure that we don't limit our ability to have those discussions by having too many presentations that limit the amount of time we can have with one individual presentation. So that's why I decided to bring it up again this time. It's just after seeing our agendas the last few meetings, I want to make sure that we're able to give everything enough time to go over everything. So I guess I can just, if there's any discussion on that.
I'd support that. The 2 additional meetings was actually field visits. I think it's very important to see some of these things in action and a little bit more insightful than PowerPoint presentation.
I would support it, whether it's field trips or not. I'm very in support of this. We've talked about this every year for a couple of years, and I just think we have, we don't meet on a timely basis. There's too much going on, and that, we get caught not being able to have any input or any, or any input into what's going on. Plus, you can see this was a fabulous meeting, but it was 2 hours and 10 minutes long, or 2 hours and 15 minutes. It's a long time to have staff coming here and us too. So I just think I'm totally in favor. I love the idea of field trips, but we say that every year and then we don't have them. So
yeah, I think this year we didn't. We had them last year and the year before, but we haven't. Yeah, last year.
But not this year at all. That schedule, I love that schedule. This is the time to do it.
Yeah, John.
Year's not over.
Yeah. All right. I guess that it sounds like that we still have a little bit of.
Do you know what your feelings about it?
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I watched some of the meetings online and it seems like our group really benefit from having meetings more frequently.
Mm-hmm.
Also, if there's anything that comes up, or addressing it sooner and not having to call a special meeting to be something that can disrupt the
Yeah.
schedule.
So in talking to the clerk's office, actually, Cassie talked to the clerk's office, after the last meeting, there were some concerns with just staffing, right? They were short-staffed. Do we have enough capacity to cover it? What we will do is we'll bring it back to the city manager and the city clerk. We'll talk about whether or not that's something she can support at the moment, and then we'll figure out how best to move forward. But we'll definitely keep y'all in the loop over the next couple of months. We'll try to get it figured out, whatever that looks like between now and January, so we can we can know where we're going to be. It may require some council conversation at some point. Depends on how the city manager wants to move forward.
All right, I appreciate that, and I think also just to stress, January would be a regular meeting no matter if we met.
Yeah, we'll be in January no matter what.
Days or not. Yeah. So I think right now we'd be looking at it's October, 3, 4, 5, 5 to 6 months from now.
Yep.
As kind of when we would be looking for there's additional meetings to start. I think if we could put a motion together, at least, or if we need one, I don't know if we need a.
I think so. No, I mean, I think
Okay.
I've got the general consensus from the group here. I can bring
So
that back.
then we'll ask for the additional meetings, and then we can, in January, decide how we parse them out. If
Because we asked,
meeting
we
with-
asked for this in our
well,
last annual report.
Yeah.
And city council and the city manager at that time said, yeah, we don't see a problem with it. So, you know, we do have we have a new city manager now, and it's a different, you know, staff as well.
And I think that one thing that we do want to make sure that, you know, the clerk's office has got enough capacity to do it. They're a small group, and like us, we're a small group, but they also have a small group, and they've got a lot of different reports. So we'll figure it just may mean shifting of resources, those sorts of things. It's not, you know, it's not that it can't happen. We just need to make sure.
And we may very well find out at this time next year that meeting frequency is not adequate. It's too much. I just, from other boards that have increased frequency, they had to pull back because they didn't have any agenda items for different meetings, just because, for whatever reason. I'm not saying that would be the case for our board. I'm just saying that we don't know what will happen in the future until we get there. So I think, but if we put ourselves out there to plan in January for 6 meetings throughout the year, I think that we can fill them pretty easily. There's a lot of stuff going on. So, okay, great. And then the only other things I'm just going to mention were some events coming up. The Shred-a-thon is Saturday at Countryside Mall. So, you know, get rid of stuff that you need to get rid of. And the city will help you shred it. The City Hall Public Plaza meeting is October 30th at North Greenwood Rec. You can share your ideas for that. And then also share ideas for programming at Coachman Park. There's a public meeting tomorrow at the Parks and Rec Advisory Board, and that's at the Long Center. And then there's another meeting to give ideas for programming at Coachman Park November 14th at the East Library, which is where we're meeting today. And then I also had noticed that the city has put out some new educational signage in some of the parks. I saw some of it was at Courtney Campbell, and it looked really great. And I look forward to seeing more of that kind of educational and informational signage put out at other parks, because it really looks like it has a wealth of information that tourists and residents can collect from just going out to the park. So with that, I'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you all for coming.